Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Wednesday. About half the work week in the rearview mirror. Appreciate you hanging out with us here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Got Jacob Beck and Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos, and lots to cover over the next 2 hours. 15 minutes from right now, JD PicKell, host of the Hard Count on 3 Sports, talking college football. New college football rankings came out last night. I'm guessing a lot of you did not watch that. Just a hunch. A lot of LSU fans weren't locked in, but we'll talk in the national landscape of college football with JD PicKell in 15 minutes. It is What If Wednesday, welcoming those in the Bayou Ford chat as well as on Twitter. We'll do that half an hour from right now. Taysom Hill, the NFC's Offensive Player of the Week. That's at the end of the hour. Matthew Bruni going to join us every single Wednesday moving forward at 2 o'clock to talk some basketball. We're going to talk about some of the takeaways that I had from LSU's player interviews yesterday, including some sound from Will Campbell that I found to be pretty interesting. And, of course, SEC football power rankings. I've got them right here. I feel pretty good about them. I don't feel great about where LSU is just personally, but we'll get to all that 90 minutes from right now. Let's start the same way we do every single day with our Genesis opening drive.
It's time for Hunt's Opening Drive, presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge.
We start on the basketball court. LSU last night beat Charleston Southern 77-68. On its face, that doesn't look terrible. If you realize then what Charleston Southern had looked like for its first 4 Division I games, understand what LSU had done last week, and put it all into context with watching the basketball, it was not a great performance by LSU. It was certainly a very, very sluggish start. And in an odd way, it was a sluggish start on the backboards because LSU absolutely crushed Kansas State on the glass less than a week ago in Manhattan. And then you come back in this game, and Charleston Southern out-rebounded LSU 26-20 in the first half. But the more concerning piece was that Charleston Southern got 13 first-half offensive rebounds and turned those into 11 second-chance points. I was watching every dribble, and I didn't think LSU did a good job of blocking out at all. I didn't also think that it was some sort of gross lack of hustle. I thought some of the long rebounds on missed threes, and Charleston Southern did miss a lot of threes early in the game, just kind of found Charleston Southern hands. But you can do a better job of putting a body on somebody and getting to the glass. And I do think that's going to be a strength for LSU this year. I think Damian Collins can really rebound. I think Corey Chess can really rebound. I think Jalen Reed can really rebound. I think they're going to do a good job on the glass like they did against Kansas State. They just didn't in the first half of this game. And then you add to it the fact that Cam Carter and Jalen Reed picked up fouls very, very quickly. And when they did, they went out of the game, and I thought it really put LSU's offense in a rut. You were counting on a lot of guys on the floor that don't do a lot of scoring. Jai Bailey's not a scorer. Damian Collins is not a scorer. Jai Bailey can finish around the rim. He can get trash points. Same with Damian Collins. He can go up and flush it. Corey Chess, same way. But those guys aren't scorers. Curtis Givens right now in his collegiate career is not a scorer. He's a guy that can handle the ball a little bit, maybe knock down a spot-up shot here and there, but he's kind of growing into his role as a college point guard. You didn't have a lot of guys out on the floor that can score. You did have one, and without him, you'd have been in big trouble. But Victorious Miller was, without question, the biggest positive of the game last night because he really showcased his scoring ability. He had 19 points in the game. He shot 9 for 11 from 2-point range. He missed his 3 3-point opportunities, but he was doing a great job of getting to his spots, pulling up in the mid-range, and knocking down jump shots. It's not an art that you see very often in NBA basketball or college basketball at this point. Folks don't believe in the mid-range game, and I understand it's a low percentage shot for less points. So a lot of people don't take them. You won't see Alabama take one from now until Easter. But he did that last night, and it was very effective. He also showed some strength, ability to get to the rim with a left-handed layup. He was brought into LSU to be a scorer, and I didn't think that he would have a huge role on this team, especially not in November and December, because you're talking about a team that brought in 3 veteran transfers. You had Sears, you have Carter, you have Bailey. You figure those guys are going to play a lot of minutes. You had Tyrell Ward coming back. They kind of play the same position. I figured Ward would garner a lot of those minutes. I thought Victorious Miller would have some time to grow into his role. Well, he had 15 points on the road in front of 10,000 people at Kansas State, and he showed up when he was really the only guy on the floor that was able to get his own shot last night in the first half, and he did a great job of doing that. So I thought that was the positive of the first half. But still, you were letting them score because you were allowing second chance points, and you really only had one offensive option. So you went to the half trailing this Charleston Southern team that has gotten annihilated by every D1 team they have played. That's really, really concerning. And I thought that LSU would come out in the second half and really put the clamps down defensively, because LSU's first shot defense in the first half was very good. Charleston Southern got most of what they got in second chance points in the first half. So I figured, okay, you'll put the clamps on them, you'll get the rebounds. Well, Charleston Southern started making buckets, and they kind of stayed at arm's length, and LSU couldn't necessarily regain control of the game. But finally, there was a stretch there from the 19:21 mark of the second half to the 4:50 mark of the second half, which is a good chunk of basketball time. You're talking about 15 minutes of action. LSU went 17 of 24 from the floor. That's 71%. And what I liked about LSU's offense is they did not rely on the three-pointer. I think they're going to shoot the three a little bit better than they have, and I may be proven wrong there, but I think they are, and they did make some big ones. Sears had a huge step-back three from the right wing early in the second half. It was a big, big shot for LSU, but they just did a good job of creating high-percentage shots and making them. And that was a really, really good thing for LSU. They did take control over that point of the game. And I thought where LSU's defense really exerted itself and you really saw positive defensive impact was around the rim. Kansas State had trouble with LSU's length in that game on Thursday. And then again last night, Charleston Southern just 9 for 21 on layups. And that sounds horrendous, 9 of 21 on layups, and it's not good. But trust me, if you have the stat sheet, access to it like we do, teams miss a lot more quote-unquote layups than you think. That word sounds like you would make 99 out of 100. That's not the case. As we know, shots get contested at the rim all the time. But 9 for 21 is a low mark, and it's because LSU, the guys I was just talking about there, talking about rebounding, have some length that can really make you uncomfortable. Damian Collins can make guys really uncomfortable, and he looks like finally in his third year in college, he's starting to figure it out a little bit. Corey Chest is a ridiculous athlete, and he is not afraid to go up there and contest shots at the rim. Jalen Reed's doing a better job of contesting some shots at the rim. Robert Miller can get up there and make some things difficult for opposition at the rim. So I thought that Charleston Southern had some issues with LSU's length in this game. So overall, I'm glad they won the game. You don't want to have a disaster. This would have been a quad 4 loss. No ways about it. And you want to try to avoid those. What did I call them last week? Landmines. These 2 months are about avoiding landmines, and then when you get an opportunity to take a swing, you need to hit a couple. And they hit one at Kansas State, and they've got a couple more coming this weekend, and you'll have one in the ACC Challenge. Like, you have one against SMU, and you don't have to win all of those games, but you need to hit a couple, and then you avoid the landmines. And trust me, with 10 minutes to go in this game, it was very much a landmine. And LSU found a way to do enough to win the game. It's a bad Charleston Southern team. They are not good. And they shot 6 of 21 from 3. They only shot 36% for the game. A little bit of a hat tip there to LSU's defense, but more so just a bad basketball team that you were playing against. 21 second chance points is way too many. 18 offensive rebounds is way too many. But LSU did some good things as well. I mentioned Miller. And the turnovers are one thing that I talked about yesterday. You want to keep that around 10. LSU had 11 turnovers, 6 in the first half, 5 in the second half. So I like the way that LSU took care of the basketball. Specifically from that vein, I like the way Victorious Miller played, because when you ask him to score 19 points, he takes 14 shots. He's got the ball a good bit in those 23 minutes that he played. He did not have a turnover in the game. So real step forward for Victorious Miller. And although I didn't think that the team played great, that's a confidence game for him. That's these last 2 games where he averages 17 points. You start to feel like he's really finding a little bit of a rhythm there. Now got to knock down some threes to help that mid-range game, that driving game, and to stretch the defense out. But I thought he did a good job in the game. So LSU, not their best effort. Again, 56% from the free throw line's not going to get it done. But the Tigers do win by 9 points. They jump over the landmine, and they move into this tournament this weekend with an opportunity to get some better wins back.
Yeah, I think the most concerning thing I think is probably the rebounding and the fact that you went level in the whole game total rebounding against Charleston Southern team that didn't really have a whole lot of size. I mean, they had one guy I think that was 6'10", but other than that, Dalen Berry for them.
Yeah.
It was 6'4". He had 12 rebounds, so that's concerning. But for me, something that has been a trend so far in the last few games is Jalen Reed. He
getting involved offensively.
No, he's not, and they're going to need him to in conference play. If they can't just rely on Cam Carter and Jordan Sears. Maybe they can rely on Victorious Miller more than we thought, but still, Jalen Reed's going to really need to get involved for them offensively if we're going to have a chance.
You know what is not going to help you get involved offensively? Picking up 2 fouls 4 minutes into the game and playing 5 minutes in the first half.
That's not good.
And when he and Cam Carter sit for 15 minutes each in the first half, a 20-minute half, that hurts you offensively.
Yeah.
And that's certainly not a trend at this point. Those 2 guys just got 2 quick fouls, but I've always been kind of puzzled by that. The one guy that drove me absolutely nuts, and I was covering the team at the time, Johnny O'Bryant could not go out there without getting his second foul 6 minutes into the game. And then Trent would sit him for 16 minutes in the first half. And it's like, you're the only offensive player that we have. So if you get the first foul at the 17-minute mark, stop playing physical defense. Let him have a layup because we need you to go down and score on the other end. So it always frustrates me when you understand that coaches may sit you for the rest of the first half and you still pick up that second foul. And Matt McMahon was actually asked about that after the game in the post game, and I heard the answer. Said, usually I will play some guys with 2 fouls in the first half, but in this instance, I felt like we had some quality minutes on the floor. Damian Collins was playing very well. I didn't think it was necessary to throw Reed right back in there when Collins was doing what he was doing, and it certainly wasn't offensive for Collins, but he did have 5 rebounds in the first half. He blocked 2 shots in the first half, so McMahon wanted to let him go a little bit. And so these are situations where you can probably afford that. Yeah. But let's be pretty frank here, and you texted me this last night. You've been trailing at the half against Alabama State and Charleston Southern. You need to get it together. You need to come out and play a little more urgency. These teams are really bad that you're playing, so you need to play with a little bit more urgency, and we'll see what LSU can do. They're playing Pittsburgh coming up on Friday, who's very, very good. That'll be a 1:30 start, so right in the middle of our show. But tomorrow, I am going to have a Pittsburgh Post-Gazette writer who covers the Panthers on to preview that game because I think Pitt could be a top 25 team. They absolutely smoked West Virginia the other day. They're undefeated, so that'll be a good test for LSU on Friday. But they beat Charleston Southern 77-68. That is your Genesis opening drive. We'll come back and chat with our guy, JD PicKell, host of the Hard Count on 3. That's next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Audio Video Security Solutions, AVSSLA.com. If you got a bunch of family coming over for Christmas this holiday season and you want to make sure that when the kiddos want to sit down and watch those Christmas movies or you want to entertain over the holiday season, have that sound system put in, have that surround sound put in your house, have that new television mounted there as the Christmas time approaches. Great specials over at Audio Video Security Solutions, and they're incredible to work with. Mitchell Fisher and his local team here in Baton Rouge will help you every step of the way. They had to do that for us because we don't know how to do anything at the Palmer House. So if you're in that boat, Audio Video Security Solutions will absolutely help you get it set up now so that when the family comes in for the holidays, everything is ready to roll. You can give Mitchell Fisher a call on his cell phone. It's 225-439-7920. Again, 225-439-7920. They can mount your televisions. They can wire your surround sound. They can put in your security system. All those things can be done with one call to Mitchell Fisher and Audio Video Security Solutions. It's AVSSLA.com. Audio Video Security Solutions. AVSSLA.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show. Hopefully Hunt remembered to bring his laptop charger. Nah, there's no chance.
Chugging right along here. Wednesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. What If Wednesday coming up next in 15 minutes. But it's that time of the week. We go out to the Jim's Firearms Hotline, chat with our guy, JD PicKell, host of the Hard Count on 3. JD, how we doing? We don't have JD affairs. I'm looking at Beck and he's going, nope, don't have him, but good intro there. We do have What If Wednesday. There's an Augusta National one that's been tossed in there that I'm going to have to think about here for a second. But we now have JD PicKell, host of the Hard Count on 3s with us every single Wednesday on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Joining us right this very moment. JD, how we doing?
Brother, I'm doing well. You know what? I missed your first call from your phenomenal production team because I have a 5-day-old little girl.
Whoa!
Who we are in the midst of bringing into this wonderful world. So I don't know how to explain to her that Indiana football's undefeated. I don't know how to explain to her that Nick Saban is not just a college game day host. So we got a lot to unpack, but all that to say, appreciate your patience and glad to be on with you, brother.
Well, many congratulations, and you don't really have to take this phone call if you got stuff to deal with. I know that can be a little bit overwhelming for round one, but congrats to you and the mom.
Hey, thank you so much. Yeah, I wish I could have brought her into a world where there wasn't a 12-team playoff and we could have gone from like 4 to 6, 4 to 8. But that's just being too idealistic right now. But no, nonetheless, man, I'm excited and I appreciate it.
All right, that's awesome. Let's talk a little football. Then that'll get your mind off of that. Let's start with the home team, who's not very good. Tigers get smoked in Gainesville, even though they had the ball for 40 minutes. What do you make of the game, the state of LSU's program, the whole kit and caboodle here in purple and gold?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of feels like insult to injury from what happened the previous week against Alabama. I think the most frustrating part is if you're LSU, like mature teams in year 3, teams under a year 3 head coach now, like you would hope there was the ability to bounce back after the way that it was embarrassing at home and you got to go on the road. Like you would hope there was some sort of like, no, we're drawing a line in the sand, we're flipping the switch, and we're kind of changing our tempo here going into a new week. It's a team that, quite frankly, like nothing against Florida, like LSU is a better team than Florida. And then that's not trying to make less of what the game was. It's not trying to take anything away from DJ Lagway. Like LSU and where they're at right now, even with all the holes they have in this roster, like they have better players than Florida. And so to not see that, I think, was a little bit concerning, a little bit frightening. If I'm an LSU fan, just for the sheer fact of everything I just said, like you're supposed to be at a point now where your team is able to hit the reset button week in and week out in year 3 under Brian Kelly. So that's a roundabout way to say this season has been obviously very disappointing for everyone in Baton Rouge, and very, very curious to see how they attack the portal cycle here in the distant future. Very curious to see, too, what Garrett Nussmeier does.
Before we get to the playoff rankings, just about on the football field, what do you think Tennessee Vols fans are feeling right now after they go up 10-0 on Georgia, ended up losing at 31-17?
I think the way that it feels once clock hits triple zeros probably feels different than how they should feel, at least here on a Wednesday going into the second to last weekend of the college football season. Like all off season long, even at SEC Media Days, the talking point for Tennessee was, hey, can you get to 10-2? Because Bama and Georgia, like, let's just go ahead and chalk those up as the two most difficult spots for you from a roster talent matchup wise. Like, can you get to 10-2? And sitting here right now for Tennessee, I mean, you're staring down the barrel here of Vanderbilt being your last game of the season, and everything else is pretty winnable prior. Like every single game here for Tennessee, like you should feel good about your chances to finish the trip here and finish 10-2. So if you told Tennessee fans, hey, you're going to beat Alabama, you're going to play Georgia tough in the early going, Georgia, you'll probably drop that one, but you'll finish 10-2. Will you take that? I think they absolutely would. And I think, honestly, a 10-2 Tennessee team, I don't want to speak for the committee because who knows what they're going to do, but my gut feeling would be they would get in with the win over Alabama. And honestly, with a win over Vanderbilt at the end of the season, I think that would bode well for them as well.
I'm looking at Tennessee and they're 11th, but there's no guarantee that a team in front of them is going to get a third loss. I don't know what it means with them in Indiana. I don't know what Texas A&M beating Texas would do because Texas A&M comes in 15th. So you're basically telling me you feel comfortable where Tennessee is with them getting in with 2 more wins?
I do. And I think the big thing for me, too, is how much this committee has stressed that they value eye tests. And people can say whatever they want during the season, and we'll see what actually happens on Selection Sunday and how much they really value eye tests when it's all said and done. But so far, this committee has been consistent, feels like a generous word, but they have maintained the talking point that, hey, we really care about how these teams look on the field. And if you care about how teams look on the field, I think Tennessee checks a lot of boxes with how good that defense is, with how they run the football. So if you're comparing a team like a Tennessee and a Notre Dame, I understand Notre Dame's got a better record. I understand Notre Dame has looked solid, for lack of a better term, since the NIU game. But overall, like if I'm taking eye test, I'm taking Tennessee over Notre Dame. We'll see how Indiana looks against Ohio State. Nothing against them, but I think Tennessee, from an eye test perspective, should feel relatively confident with a 10-2 resume. They can find their way in.
All right, let's talk about Indiana. Let's go to the extreme. What if they lose by 40?
Hunt, they should just. I think we probably are all aligned here. They should just bench Curtis Rourke for this one. I think that's probably the way they should go. Just bench Curtis Rourke, and we'll roll out there with our second best 11 and see what happens. If they lose by 40, I'm out on Indiana. Okay. And I have been pro-Indiana. I want my little girl to grow up with a Curt Cignetti level of self-belief. I want her to believe in herself the way Curt Cignetti believes in himself. If they lose by 40 to Ohio State, what are we doing here? Because if we're saying Ohio State right now is the second best team in America, and Indiana is supposed to somehow stack up with 10 other teams that are ranked below Ohio State, and you get 40-piece, like the tough part is where else do you point to if you're Indiana for the pick-me win, if you will? Like, the resume is not bad because of how definitive they've been, and you don't want to knock Indiana for handling business in a decisive fashion, even though they haven't played anybody. But like, I need a little more meat on the bone. I need a little bit more assurance that if I put you in a 12-team playoff, we're not going to have a situation where you get 40-piece stick in by a team that's a similar level of caliber of an Ohio State. So got to at least look competitive this weekend. And if they get 40-piece, I am firmly out on Indiana. I don't know if the committee would feel that way.
What if they lose by 14? You think they're feeling really good about themselves?
I think they should. Yeah, I think they should. I think it probably matters how that 14 looks. Like, Is it hey, we were down 28 going into the fourth, and then we did actually bring in our second stringers, and Taven Jackson, or maybe Ohio State brought in their second stringers, and we scored 2 quick ones against them to make it 14. But I think if it's 14 and it's a legitimate, hey, we were in it the whole time, maybe Ohio State got a touchdown to kind of seal the deal. At that point, I think we can all sort of exhale a little bit and say, all right, in Columbus, one of the best rosters, if not the best roster in college football. Like if you can hold serve there, I think I have confidence knowing that, okay, Indiana actually is a version of what we believe them to be. Are they the best team in the Big Ten? Are they beating Oregon? Probably not. Are they beating Penn State? That conversation becomes a lot more interesting, but I would feel some level of confidence of like, okay, hey, Indiana is not fraudulent, to say the least.
How good is Texas?
I think they're really good, Hunt. I really do. And I know that their loss to Georgia has kind of caused us all to second guess our reference points on them. And the Michigan win wasn't what we thought it was. But I look at their roster, and I look at who their head coach is, I look at who their quarterback is. I think Texas is going to be one of those Final Four teams when it comes to this college football playoff deal. When the dust settles on this 12-team deal, we got our semis. I would be surprised if Texas is not in there. Now, some of that depends on what seed they get in their draw and all that, but I really think they're so complete is the word a lot of people use. I think they're built the right way up front. I think the Georgia game, honestly, because that's kind of like I just mentioned, that's what we all go back to as to why Texas shouldn't be in there. We talk about good wins and their best win is Vanderbilt. I think that the way that they are built and the way that they play Georgia, if Quinn Ewers is able to have some continuity going into that game, he's in rhythm. He's not, I guess that was his second game back from injury. It felt very obvious to me in that game he wasn't totally seeing it, whether that's he wasn't recognizing coverages, whether it was Kirby Smart and Glenn Schumann had just the Bulldog special cooked up for him. I'm not convinced that if Quinn Ewers doesn't get hurt a few weeks before and is able to maintain momentum going into that week, I think that game's, I don't know if they win that game, but it's definitely a lot closer.
Who do you give a better chance in terms of dealing with playoff contenders this coming Saturday? Ole Miss is at Florida. Do you give the Gators a chance? Minnesota hosts Penn State. Do you give the Gophers a chance? Either one of those playoff hopefuls maybe in some trouble?
It's funny because I don't want to speak out two sides of my mouth because I think Ole Miss is really, really good. I think there is probably a lot more of a, hey, what the heck are they going to do here when it comes to what Florida is right now? Because now they got some confidence, having beaten LSU. DJ Lagway is getting rolling. I probably am more suspect of a Penn State. I think Ole Miss is a better football team, but just the spot in general for Ole Miss, they've kind of got a little bit of, I don't want to say a little bit of a reason to exhale, but you're looking down the rest of their schedule, Florida to Mississippi State, hey, boys, we finished 10-2. wins over Georgia, a win over South Carolina, which keeps looking better and better. Like overall now, if I'm Ole Miss, I worry about them not being able to finish the trip here these last few weeks. So, like I said, Penn State probably makes me more nervous as a team if it were to come to a 12-team playoff. But I think Ole Miss against Florida, that's a very, very frisky team right now.
I was pretty surprised and honestly impressed at the environment in the Swamp for a Florida team that was under 500 at that point, and the toughness that Florida played with. They took it to LSU, and they could have laid down. They certainly did not. I think it'll be another good environment there in the Swamp coming up on Saturday. I'd be remiss if I didn't get a thought on the home team here as they take on Vanderbilt Saturday night in Death Valley. Diego Pavia. You think LSU can get off a 3-game schneid, or do you like the Doors?
You know, I've continued to pick LSU, I believe, each of those last 3 weeks. So take that with a grain of salt. It's another really great test of the response mechanism here for LSU. And I think when everyone watches Vanderbilt, Hugh Freeze spoke to it like it's option football. And the tricky thing about option football is it really doubles down on how disciplined you need to be. Everyone needs to play their assignment to the nth degree, even more so than if you were playing, any other standard spread offense or what have you. And so all that's to say, for LSU, I'm excited to see the way they get up off the mat, because now they've got another loss, and now there's more talking points around Brian Kelly and what this team is. Everyone's going to the clips on social media, people yelling at each other on the sideline, which just happens in every single football game, regardless of what people would like to lead us to believe. I'm excited to see how LSU decides to bounce back here, because I really think that's what it is. Do they make the decision to play a different brand of football, a more physical, more dialed-in brand of football, for lack of a better phrase? So I think LSU does win, and I think there's a little bit of an exhale, hopefully, for the folks in Baton Rouge, as minimal as it may be, given the context of the season.
We will certainly see. Congratulations to you and the family. I know those nights are long, but those months go short. I found myself touring a preschool today, a kindergarten today, which feels like we just got home. So congratulations to you and the family. Try to get some sleep.
Thanks so much, man. My wife is Wonder Woman, so I'm in good shape. Hey, go Tigers.
That's JD PicKell, host of The Hard Count. Subscribe up to the channel. Get your college football fix on YouTube from the folks over at On3 or wherever you get your podcast. It is The Hard Count with JD PicKell. He's with us every Wednesday. We'll come back and play some What If Wednesday next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com. I know a lot of insurance policies start on January the 1st. Can be crazy with renewals around the Christmas season. If that's the case and you'd like to get a look at your commercial policy before renewal comes up in January, Highland Insurance Group needs to be on your list. Give Jonathan Carbo and his team a call. Check them out online at HighlandIG.com. They can take care of you. As Jonathan always tells me, look, your insurance broker should be part of your team, not somebody that comes in trying to sell you stuff. It should be part of the team. It should be part of the business so that when things happen, you feel comfortable and confident that you're taken care of. Same way you feel when things happen and you got to go to your attorney. Same way you feel when you're looking at the books and you need to go to your accountant. Your insurance broker should be in that conversation as well. If currently that's not the case, the Highland Insurance Group can help you out with that. Go online to HighlandIG.com, reach out, have them take a look at your policies, and get a look for your business. You never know when that next hurricane's around the corner, when that next car accident's around the corner, when that next workers' compensation claim's around the corner. Highland Insurance Group can help you out with all of it. It's Highland Insurance Group right here in Baton Rouge. They can help you out statewide. HighlandIG.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, hosted by the Goo Goo Dolls' #1 fan, Hunt Palmer.
Chugging along here on a Wednesday. Hope your work week has been off to a good start. About half that work week now in the rear view mirror. We still got plenty to do here on a Wednesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Taysom Hill got some honors bestowed upon him earlier today. We'll chat about that in 15 minutes. Matthew Bruni going to be with us in about 25 minutes talking basketball. We had a chance to sit down with some of LSU's players yesterday. The vibe was very different yesterday. I'll get to that in the second hour. We got some sound from Will Campbell as well as Brian Kelly on the teleconference. Of course, SEC Power Rankings are coming up today at 2:30, so still plenty to do. Appreciate you hanging out with us here. For now, let's play some What If Wednesday.
Space, reality. It's more than a linear path. Where a single choice can branch out into infinite realities. Follow me and ponder the question. question. What if?
All right, first one here. What if Indiana loses to Ohio State by 45?
So we just asked JD that question. That's simple for me, and I differ from T-Bob here. He's been talking about this in the morning. They lose by 45 points. I think that's it. You have no wins, and you have one chance to show you belong with a team that we all know does belong, and you showed you couldn't. I think this is a playoff game for them. I think they've gotten to the playoff. This is it. You're in the playoff now, because I just can't trust a team that's beating Northwestern and Purdue and whoever the heck they're playing, Rutgers, and then you step up one time in class and you get blown out. If they lose a game by 10 points, I'm okay with it, and I think that's probably closer to what's going to happen. I will be surprised if Indiana goes out there on Saturday and just gets whitewashed, because I think they're pretty good. I think they're well coached. I'll be surprised if they win, but I'll be surprised if they lose by 40. I think the likely result is they lose by somewhere between 10 and 20 points, and how that looks may have a big bearing on what happens to you. I think it's fair to judge a team against a brand like that for 4 hours on a Saturday. When you have no skins on the wall, I'm not just going to give you a bunch of credit for beating a bunch of teams that aren't any good. You don't get any credit for beating Michigan. They're not good. So I think it's important for Indiana to go out there and really compete on Saturday. They don't have to win. They better compete.
Yeah, I'm on the fence, man. I kind of agree with T-Bob, just because if we have a team in the Big Ten, because let's look at it this way. I would say that most people consider the Big Ten to be the second best conference in football.
Yes.
Behind the SEC.
Yes.
So
why do they think that?
Because of how many teams that are in that conference make it to the playoff or have made it to the playoff?
Because of the quality of football at the top of that league, which Indiana has not played in.
Okay, that's fair, but I still think that if you're a team in the Big Ten and you lose one game in your regular season, to me, if you don't get in, I just wonder how you can value this conference, because
but it's not about, and I'm just explaining like my thought on that. It's not the conference, it's your schedule, because Florida's schedule and Texas's schedule are not the same.
Yeah.
So
that's my point.
It's your schedule.
Okay, so then why is Texas getting so much credit?
Brand and I think they're teetering. If they lose another game, I think they go to the back of the line.
Yeah.
If you lose to A&M, you go back behind Tennessee. You go back behind Alabama. You go back behind A&M. You go to the back of the line.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, to me, I kind of see his point. I see both. I think I see both sides of it. It's just gonna, it just gets into, I don't know. The situation can be a little bit, but go either way, in my opinion, in terms of how you reason as to why certain teams shouldn't be in or not.
We thought, and we don't know yet because we don't have a result, but we thought that this 12-team playoff would allow teams to go schedule more difficult games.
That's not what's happening.
And if this holds up, it's going to be the opposite.
Yeah.
Unless LSU, who will go schedule Clemson and Ohio State and everybody that's difficult. Because you got to go win the games, right?
Yeah.
Sweet. Awesome.
All right, next one here. What if a member gave you a chance to play Augusta this weekend, but you had to do it left-handed? If you accept, you can never go back. Play or take your chances.
So my thing is, you definitely get to play Augusta, but you got to do it left-handed, and that'll be your last try. Or you just decline, and you may get invited later on. I think I got to go. I think I got to go play left-handed, and that's a real bummer. But I think I got to go do it.
Have you ever even practiced?
No, I mean I can hit the ball. I can't really get it airborne. But I would be there. I would get to go into the locker rooms, and I would get to have dinner there and stay on the property, and I get to see the whole thing. But I'd shoot 180.
Yeah, I think you have to do it. I mean, there's no, obviously with the peasants like us, there's not any kind of even close to like guarantee or even solid chance that we could get on there.
There's no chance.
You just got to do it.
Yeah, I think I just got to go and hack it around left-handed and let the dream die there.
Yeah, if this is the situation, like I'm gonna take off the next few days of work and just go hit like 500 range balls, swinging left-handed. I'm gonna get a coach to show me how to do it.
Tron from No Laying Up played golf left-handed for a year, and he got to be reasonable. Like he could. He's like a scratch type player. He shoots in the 70s, low 70s, and I think he was shooting in the high 80s.
Yeah, so it can be done. Obviously, he did it for a while, but
yes.
That's I think you gotta go. There's just no way.
What I would really do is I would make sure that I could hit the ball reasonably consistently 140 yards just for the shot on 12. That would be the only chance that I would have of hitting a real golf shot. And so I would try to figure out whatever club it took for me to hit it 145 yards, I would get that.
All right, next one here. What if my wife asked to go get a Christmas tree this week?
It's reasonable. I think my wife's a little ambitious on that. She was going Christmas on like November the 3rd. We had the stockings up and everything.
That's a lot.
She had the fireplace on a couple of weeks ago when it was like 76 outside.
That's way too much.
She fakes the funk a little bit from that way, like she's just begging for the cold weather. But I think at this point, November the 20th, you're in the clear. We got like 2 Grinch inflatables in the front yard right now. So one of them keeps blowing over, and I get told that I have to fix it, and I don't really know how, and I just keep procrastinating and putting it off. But we're getting the Christmas tree. It sounds like in our family potentially on Saturday before the game. So we'll see. I think we reached the point where it's acceptable.
Yeah, I think with as long as you're within a week of Thanksgiving, I think that's like the really reasonable time for, in my opinion, of when you can do it. My wife actually, she wanted to set up the tree like a couple of weeks ago, but that's because she's traveling a lot, like right now and then December. So she knew that
it's a little home vibes.
Well, yeah, and also she knew that I was not going to be doing this by myself. I'm not going to go out and set up all the decorations and whatnot. So
I didn't lift a single decoration unless that she wouldn't trust me to do any of that.
Well, that's actually kind of good on your part. You're like so untrustworthy.
No, that's my dad's like motto in life is screw up the first like 3 things they ever ask you to do, and then they'll never ask you again.
Wow.
So that's
a really good motto. I like that.
That's where he's from. He's never asked to do one thing ever.
All right, we got some from the chat. First one: what if LSU loses badly to Vanderbilt and Oklahoma?
I don't know if that changes a lot, Beck. You go to a worse bowl. Well, I don't even know what that means. Yeah. I don't think the recruiting class is going to fall apart because you lost those 2 games. I think that's maybe the biggest misconception out there. It's not like Jimbo was setting the world on fire when they reeled in the greatest recruiting class anyone's ever seen. Far from it, in fact. You're talking about relationships. You're talking about fit. You're talking about friends in the class, geography, and of course NIL, and none of that has anything to do with the fact that LSU may lose a game here or there. Now, I will tell you that winning a big home game can oftentimes get you a few commitments from folks that are there, but very rarely do you lose a game or 2 and you have mass decommitments. That just doesn't. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it doesn't happen a lot, and I don't know that it was happen at this point. I mean, the guys you're looking at are a lot of them are in state, and then you're like Underwood and Pickett. They just don't appear to be looking anywhere else with a couple weeks left to go. So I don't think it would be a big deal.
All right, next one here. This one's interesting. What if Brian Kelly only had a 3-year contract? Would he be fired after the season?
At 8-4, no,
probably not. But he would be on thin ice next year.
Yeah, for sure. But we've talked about this. One of my least favorite things about college football is that most programs, that's harsh, lots of programs, every single time they lose a football game, everyone cries fire the coach.
Yeah,
it's like it just becomes exhausting to me.
Yeah.
And we've reached that point with Brian Kelly where just about every time he loses a game from here on out, you're going to have a ton of people say you got to fire the coach. I'm certain within it's November the 20th. I'm certain by January 20th, which is right about my birthday, we will have a lot of people that want to fire Matt McMahon based on a given day or 2, because they're not going to just run the table. They're going to lose 10 or 12 games. And once that happens 3 in a row, wheels are off. And, it's that part annoys me, frankly.
I was doing OTB yesterday, and we had Kim Mulkey on, And T-Bob kind of asked her, how do you handle, when your team's going through a struggle like this? And she gave a good answer. And amidst that answer, she kind of mentioned too, like, how you can't really evaluate a coach until they've had at least probably 4 years to get their like recruiting class and like get those cycles in. It's really, obviously there are some things that you can look at in those first few years and say, okay, that's not good. But at the same time, it's such a we're so quick to jump to conclusions with certain things. And specifically with coaching, it is always because they're the figurehead and they're going to get all the blame or all the credit. So
I think Brian Kelly's going to make multiple playoffs at LSU. That's just the way I feel about it, but we'll certainly see. That's it for What If Wednesday here on this Wednesday. We'll come back, talk some Taysom, got some honors, and I've got some thoughts on what his future should be in the immediacy here for the rest of the season. We'll do that next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Got to make LeBair's Baton Rouge your game day headquarters this season. They've got the biggest screens around, and now you can bet and dine at ESPN Bet in person. I've done it quite a few times here over the course of the fall. It's always a delightful experience inside ESPN Bet. Huge screens, multiple games on all the time. Great food, cold drinks, awesome specials, blackjack right behind you. It's a great place to hang out and watch some sporting events. And plus, you can sign up 2 weeks to go for the SEC contest on Cover 5. Download the Cover 5 app. Hit the promo code LABRSEC24. You can probably beat me because my standing has been dropping like a brick the last 4 weeks, as you've seen on the show. Download the app. If you don't have it, get the Pen Play app today. LeBair's Baton Rouge, your live sports headquarters. Must be 21 years or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-589-9966 for help.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Wrapping up hour number one here. Taysom Hill learned earlier today he is the NFC's Offensive Player of the Week for his do-it-all performance on Sunday against the Cleveland Browns. Completed a pass, running all over the place, big play, touchdown run, catching balls as well, running kicks back, threw a pick, fumbled, tackled the guy that he fumbled. He did everything.
There was nothing he didn't do.
He really wasn't just the Offensive Player of the Week. He was special teams. He was taking tackles. He was doing everything that one can do on a football field. And that's kind of been his role for a long time there in New Orleans. And the question kind of begs, like, how realistic is it to get him that involved in every game moving forward this year? And my answer to that would be real possible because you don't have any wide receivers. Chris Olave is not going to play again this year. Rashid Shaheed, not going to play again this year. So you're counting on Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who's making some big plays, but I don't know if he's a guy that's going to make 8, 10, 12 catches for you. I don't know how confident you are in the rest of the crew there that's basically showed up off the street to play wide receiver for the New Orleans Saints. Get your playmaker involved. Snap him the ball. Throw him the ball. Let him throw the ball. Get crazy. I would absolutely do that every single week. Drive defensive coordinators nuts with this guy. And all the while, save Alvin Kamara a few hits. You're going to extend him for 2 more seasons. He's getting up there in age. Taysom Hill's a battering ram. Just let him plow forward. I'm all for getting Taysom Hill as involved as is humanly possible. It feels like I haven't thought about this, quite frankly. I've thought about the players on this team a lot. I've thought about the state of the organization a lot. I haven't thought about Darren Rizzi and Clint Kubiak and Joe Woods a lot. Because once the move was made from Dennis Allen, and honestly, once the Marshawn Lattimore move was made, because I thought that one took it one step further, where it felt like, okay, if you're going to fire the head coach, yeah, they're not good enough. You got to go in a different direction there. But then you're trading your most valuable commodity in Marshawn Lattimore. That's a white flag. And at that point in my head, I'm thinking, okay, they're going to reset this entire thing. That includes the coaching staff. They're going to gut this thing. You're not going to be able to see one single trace of Sean Payton and Drew Brees and Dennis Allen and Pete Carmichael in this entire building. And as I think about it, if they win 2 games, not that they were against great opponents, but Atlanta's been okay, and Cleveland at least has a decent defense, I'm thinking these guys are coaching to stick around potentially. Darren Rizzi would love to be the head coach of the New Orleans Saints. I don't think there are a lot of people banging down the door for Darren Rizzi to be their next head coach. He's a little-known special teams coach. But the Saints have given him a shot here. And if he gets this job, it's going to be because he wins a lot of games. And if he wins a lot of games, it stands to reason the offense will perform at a high level, and maybe he wants Clint Kubiak around. Because maybe Clint Kubiak is the guy that had this offense humming for the first 2 weeks, and then everybody got hurt, and now he's had the opportunity to adjust, and his offensive line is almost back to 100% health, and then he can do some things to score more points and maybe stick around as the offensive coordinator. I'm not saying this is the best course of action. I'm calling it a potential course of action. And if it is, then Taysom Hill needs to be in the middle of all of it because he's better than all the other guys you've got playing wide receiver in terms of impacting the game, creating mismatches, and scoring points. He just is. He's not without fault. He's not great at throwing the deep ball. You saw that. He does have some fumbling issues, but he's a mismatch. And they need to get him involved as much as possible if they're trying to win as many games as they can. I tossed in the caveat of save Alvin Kamara's legs a little bit. I'm for it. Alvin Kamara leads the NFL in touches, by the way. Leads the NFL in touches. That's not a great recipe for my 30-plus-year-old running back who I just signed to an extension. I don't really need him leading the NFL in touches. I'm okay taking all the tread off of Taysom's tires. Just hammer it away, and I think he's okay with it too. It's caused him to be banged up a little bit, and it might happen again, but that's the cost of doing business with Taysom Hill. He's made a lot of money. He's been really impactful, and he had a heck of a game on Sunday. I'm riding that horse until it bucks me. So I think Taysom Hill needs the football a lot moving forward for these New Orleans Saints. What's the thought of the black and gold? We've got a lot to do in hour number 2. We're going to step aside, of course, for SportsCenter as we always do. Matt Bruni's going to join us in 5 minutes talking some hoops. How's LSU football's morale? I talked to some players. That's coming up 15 minutes from right now. You're listening to a Wednesday edition of The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. I was in the car with my wife this morning. We were touring some kindergartens, and she looked at me and said, "That's that car I love. It's a Genesis." I said, they're gorgeous, aren't they? She's like, "Yeah." She doesn't even know I do this read, but she's noticed some Genesis on the road, and it's caught her eye. You should do the exact same thing because it's not the most popular car on the road, but it's just because I think a lot of people don't consider it when they're looking into those luxury vehicles. You should. Put it on your list. Get on by the store, Airline near Piku, and get behind the wheel. See the difference in the Genesis line of vehicles. Incredible comfort, stylish, sleek, very, very safe as well, and a fantastic staff over there at Genesis of Baton Rouge. Every car on the lot at Genesis of Baton Rouge, right there off Airline Highway, is online at genesisofbatonrouge.com. Go check them out, stop by, get behind the wheel of a Genesis at Genesis of Baton Rouge.